Greetings, everyone. Welcome to episode number 40 of the Avocado Gamescast, a perfectly normal video game podcast from an alternate timeline. We have two topics on the agenda for today. First up, we discuss why large gatherings of gamers jeopardize our well-being and threaten our very social fabric. Second, we explain why exploiting your workers and making them work 100 hours a week is not only necessary, but should also be enshrined in law. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Merve, Chief of Staff to President Randy Pitchford. And joining me we have Chairman of the Federal Premium Currency Reserve, Mr. Glitch.
Hello.
And Secretary of Bullshots, the Kappa.
Good evening.
How are you folks doing today?
Pretty good. I'm not gonna give up that thing though.
Yeah. Okay.
Good, man.
It's not.
I gotta get one blah out. 'Cause it's Halloween and I'm Dracula. Blah.
Blah. Yeah. I mean, people will probably be listening to this like after Halloween, but post Halloween is still spooky times. You know.
Yeah.
So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
You get till mid-November, I guess, for that.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Halloween kind of lasts from, I'd say, around September 23rd to around November 18th. That's like
That sounds good to me.
And then after that, it's like American Thanksgiving. Although the actual Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving already happened. So, I'm surprised I didn't get any protests to that. Like, nobody's angry at me for saying Canadian Thanksgiving.
I'm not even sure Canadian Thanksgiving is a real thing, honestly. So I don't know if I should be angry or not.
It is a real thing.
I mean,
we celebrate when you guys celebrate.
Thanksgivings? I mean, can't we have a unified Thanksgiving?
Like all of North America, more or less,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, well, see, the thing is, you guys celebrate, I guess, Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, depending on how, I guess, woke your city is. When we celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving, so those just happen to be on the same day for whatever reason. And I'm used to getting that day off, and I moved to the States, and now they're just like, yeah, you're gonna come to work and honor this explorer dude who killed a lot of people. So, it is what it is. So
yeah, welcome. Good to have you here.
Yeah, I've been here for like 7 years. I'm like practically American now. I eat apple pie.
Yeah, apple pie sucks. Sorry.
Oh wow, that is harsh.
It's true. Cherry, at least.
Okay, you like a good southern cherry pie. Got it.
Honestly, a good Southern cherry pie is pretty damn amazing. I mean,
can't
apple pie is fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but holy shit. Cherry pie.
I was expecting like a huge like exaltation of cherry pie. Like, holy shit, cherry pie!
I'm not going to the bat for any pies. Pies are just.
Well, I mean, I'm not Warrant. I can't really do.
Pies are backup for when you can't make a cake.
Oh wow! I know this is going to be our most controversial episode. Okay, so
pie conundrum.
Pies are great and cakes are great, but what video games have you guys been playing?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, sure. Tell us all about, I guess, Creed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which one to talk about more, Forsaken or Assassin's Creed. I feel like I've talked a lot about Assassin's Creed. I kind of want to save that one for the next one, honestly, because I want to get a little bit further into it. So I want to talk about Forsaken.
All right.
And
I haven't heard of Forsaken.
The rebirth of Destiny. The Destiny expansion, Forsaken.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Oh, I was thinking about the old Nintendo 64 game.
No.
Forsaken.
No. So you guys know, big Destiny
Future
fan,
is
blah, blah,
Forsaken.
blah. For a long time, though, I've always said, oh, yeah, Destiny's fun. It's got this, it's got that, but the story sucks. But guess what? The story doesn't suck anymore. It's actually really good. Cool. I'm in love with where the story's been going in the past couple of weeks. And what they've done is kind of smart. So there's the base game, which is kind of like a old Western revenge type story. You're getting revenge for the murder of Cade Six, who was up until now kind of the funniest, lightheartedest Guardian Vanguard, voiced by Nathan Fillion. So he's murdered, and you have to avenge him. However, you slowly unravel like layers upon layers upon layers about who's really behind his murder, in a really cool way, and it feels kind of organic. And then you kind of get a big bombshell dropped on you right at the end of where you think the story should end. We've avenged him. Should be, roll credits. Typical Destiny expansion, crappy story. Not this time. This time we kind of find out that it wasn't necessarily the person we thought was behind it. It was a person behind that. And then there's even a person behind that. So you kind of peel these layers of betrayal back. And it ends with you more or less having to fight a giant space dragon and that grants wishes.
Nice.
That's kind of like so like in a universe where everybody's more or less immortal, this thing is like the equivalent of like a nuke. You know what I mean? Like this is like the most powerful thing in the world. The story goes lots and lots of places, but where it ends up right now is you've basically created this murder battery, is like what people are calling it. So the bad guys are fueled by murder, and they create this time loop where it's just never ending, them killing you, you killing them, trapped inside this city of death. And every 3 weeks in real game time, it resets. So like it slowly gets worse and worse and worse. Then it resets. Then you're right back to where you were, which is a cool idea for a video game because you're doing the same stuff over and over again, right?
Yeah.
And video games have always had that problem. Well, why am I killing this? Why am I killing Diablo for the 5 millionth time in Diablo, right? And the way this game solves it now is it creates this murder battery where you're fueling the ultimate evil in the universe by killing his minions over and over again. And the more you kill, the more powerful he ends up getting. So I thought that was kind of it.
Yeah, I find this approach really interesting because like when they started these whole like live games of service things, like the first Destiny, I think they're still using sort of the old approach to video game storytelling where it's just like, here's a story and that's it, and then here's like the sequel or a side story. But now they're actually like adapting their storytelling to the actual medium. Right,
and that is a big step forward because it's like, well, why am I doing this again? Why am I, so I'm really surprised. And there's like zones on top of zones that you unlock the further you play. So it's like you save, you get revenge for Cade, but then you unlock another area. And like, I wasn't even expecting this area. And then after the third week, when what they call the curse gets the strongest, there's another area that's only available for that 1 week. That's basically this corrupted, you know what it looks like? It looks like the Upside Down from Stranger Things. So like you go into that realm and have to fight your way all the way through a throne to basically more or less push the magical reset button. And as long as that reset button is hit every third week, you go right back to where you were the previous 3 weeks, which is, everything's bad, but it's not that bad. And then the curse grows in power as the weeks progress. So every third week, you have to go in there and hit that magical reset button, or, it'll never not happen because of the nature of the game. People are always going to do it because that's where you get powerful loot and stuff like that. But it basically creates this whole feeling that if somebody's not in there, it's like the lost numbers, right? Somebody has to keep typing in the numbers or nobody really knows what's going to happen. But the lore guys have really been doing an excellent job digging into this and figuring out what's going on. And it's kind of priming the pump for Destiny 3, which I'm guessing is probably about a year out. Where
do you think it's going to be like cross-gen, you think?
No, I think it's going to be...
gen's last hurrah, maybe.
Possibly, yeah. But I have a big feeling that it's going to be a lot more RPG than shooter. Well, I mean, it's not going to be all the way RPG, but I think what they're setting up is going to be kind of interesting because I think they're going to actually have factions, darkness versus light, which would be something totally new for Destiny, but would create a lot more reasons about why Guardians are killing each other in a crucible, while Guardians, like there would be a lot more of a war feeling going on than just what it's currently got. So
yeah, the PvP, my understanding, is not super well integrated into the lore.
No, it's not. It's just like, yeah, we go here to get stronger. Okay, go kill each other. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely been what I've been playing the most. But Assassin's Creed, I think, is probably a stronger game if you were just looking to pick up and start something new. But if you've been sticking with Destiny for as long as I have, the fact that right now we're really getting like just story after story after story, it feels really new and refreshing because for a long time that was the biggest weakness. Like, I'm pretty sure I've always told you guys, like, I love the game, but the story's garbage. But now I'm like, wow, they finally pulled it together. You know, it took 2.5 years, but it's actually got something resembling a coherent story.
Yeah,
So
'cause it was one of the things that struck me when I played through the demo, and I was like, well, there's a lot of really cool stuff here, but plot wise, oh my god, what the hell is this?
yeah, and
You
it
know?
throws a lot at you, where it's like everything's like this capitalized noun, the
Yeah.
light, the speaker, the traveler, and it never really put it together before. But now it's starting to say, you know what, maybe it's not a good idea that this thing came into our galaxy, more or less made us immortal, but also brought with it all the shit that it did, and we have to sit here and kill it again and again and again and again. And a lot of the Guardians narratives now, like, in game, it's just like I'm tired. Like there, it used to be like I'm an immortal badass, I can do whatever I want. But now you're starting to see a lot more like, I'm just tired of fighting this fight. I'm tired of being revived every 6 days, or every 6 minutes, depending on the battle. And it's kind of leading into like the psychological break that a lot of these characters have, which
Yeah.
is, I mean, if you're an immortal fighting machine that is brought back to life every however so often. At first it'd be kind of cool, but now it's kind of like, okay, I'm done with this. Go fix your own problems, traveler. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. I really like where the story's going. I've been pretty much sharing time between that and Assassin's Creed Origins, or I'm sorry, Odyssey right now. But I want to get a little bit further in Odyssey before I really, really give a take on it. And I feel like that might be a good fit for next week too. So.
All right. So yeah, next time we'll chat a bit about Ass Creed, because I think it'll tie in well with the themes we're going to discuss, namely asses. Glitch, what have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing the latest Mario Party game, Super Mario Party for Switch. There are aspects of it that I like quite a bit. There's there is a kind of a neat throwback to the old Nintendo 64 originals, where basically the whole premise of the game is that all of Mario, his buddies, Mario and his buddies kind of get into a pissing contest about who's the most awesome. And the entire game is built around the idea of gathering, whatever status symbols equals, the most awesome in the Mushroom Kingdom, which is it's a cute nod to the old Mario Party series. The game itself kind of embraces the older Mario Party games in that it's more of a individual board game style than some of the more recent Mario Party titles.
Oh, I didn't know they departed from the board game aesthetic.
Yeah, the particularly the last couple of games, I believe the Wii U version, in particular Mario Party 10, basically piles all of your characters into a car, and your goal basically is to dodge Bowser in that one. Which it's a nice take. It's not a bad game, but this new Mario Party, Super Mario Party, I suppose, for Switch or whatever its title is much more of an embrace of the old style of, it's basically Sorry in Mario Party video game form.
Which, yeah, I appreciate based on my very limited experience with Mario Party. All I remember is that it really destroyed N64 thumbsticks.
It did that. Some of that is definitely still in this version. My big problem with it so far is that Nintendo is still trying to make motion controls a thing.
That was 100% my big problem with it too when I played it for a couple hours.
Right.
The controls are really inconsistent. One of the cool things it does do is it lets you warm up and practice what you're going to be doing until
Right.
everybody readies up, right?
Right.
So like,
that
you
was,
basically-
that's technically that's been a staple of Mario Party games for a long time, since at least the GameCube versions. But you had to actually
Okay.
drop into a practice mode version of the game. The nice feature of this particular version of Mario Party is that the practice mode, is something that just the game loads by default, and then you can dork around it until everybody is ready, is ready to actually play. A practice mode has been a feature of Mario Party games for a long time, but you actually dropped into that and had to wait for for the entire game to load, and then complete the practice mode, and then drop out of that back into the menu screen, and then into the, I guess the non-practice, the mode of that game that's for keeps or whatever.
Okay, yeah. So this seems like a better setup to sort of get newer players acquainted with the mini games.
It's definitely a smarter setup. It's a quicker setup. I like it a lot. Yeah, I would say that a Mario Party game kind of lives or dies on its mini games, and there's almost an even split of mini games that rely on just conventional controls and motion controls. And excuse me, the games that rely on motion controls, they're really, really hit or miss. The motion control, the motion detection, the motion discernment itself is spotty.
That's been my experience with Joy-Cons as well.
Yeah,
and motion control, and
the game,
and
the game forces you to use a Joy-Con. You don't have a choice in the matter. Even if you're using the Switch, as a standalone portable console, you can't play it with the Joy-Cons attached. You have to play it with a detached Joy-Con.
So here's the thing. I actually really like the Joy-Con controllers. They're surprisingly ergonomic for what they are. And one thing I did a lot of while I was playing, Super Mario Odyssey or Mario Rabbids is I'd hop on my exercise bike, take a Joy-Con in each hand, and I'd be able to play video games while biking, and that it's perfect for that. But the motion control detection has always been really spotty. So anytime I needed to do the motion control moves in Super Mario Odyssey, they'd work maybe 3/4 of the time, and that's just not good enough for a video game. You need 95% accuracy if you're going to rely on motion controls.
I remember there was one particular one where you had to basically flip over a cube of meat to cook evenly on either side, and so you had to kind of flip this thing over, and I'll tell you, it was really frustrating because I was able to do it really quickly, and my wife was just having it flip over and over and over and over again. But I tried to do it on her controller because she was just I can't do this, and for some reason, I don't know if it was something like a sensitivity thing or whatever, but whenever I tried on her controller, it would just flip right out of the pan. And I didn't feel like I was doing anything different with hers than mine. But that one especially, it just struck me as because it was all motion control, it stood out for being really, really, I don't know how to describe it, way too miss for me.
Right. There's another mini game that actually, now that you mention it, there's another mini game where you're playing as a I guess a baton twirler, where the entire premise of the mini game is that you have to raise and lower a baton in sequence with the music, the beat of the music that's playing in the game. And if you actually mimic the motion on the screen, you miss probably 80% of the
of the notes you're supposed to hit.
Right. But what I found, at least last night, what I was playing with is, if you just do if you just mimic, a jerk off motion, for lack of a better description there.
That's incredible.
In time with the music, you'll fucking nail it, which is great. But
fucking is right.
Yeah. So if you jerk off the Joy-Con controllers and you're playing Mario Party, you're set. But I don't think that's what they were going for,
I love Nintendo's ability to just make things sound sexual by accident. Nintendo Wii. Okay, maybe that's not really sexual.
I mean, I'm not judging.
Yeah, no judgment.
Yeah, no kink shaming here.
No kink shaming on the Games Cast. All right, as for what I've been playing, I haven't been playing too many video games lately. What I've been doing sort of every night before going to bed is I've been getting in a few rounds of Mario Tennis Aces, and I've been playing online because I didn't even buy the Nintendo Switch subscription service. I've just been playing against the computer, and when it comes to these sorts of games that are very repetitive, you kind of start making challenges for yourself. So my new challenge is to win every match by knockout instead of by regular point victory. Just to explain what that means in Mario Tennis Aces, if you return certain special shots improperly, then your racket loses health. And if you lose all the health on your rackets, then your rackets break and you die. So what I've been trying to do is fire special shots at the computer so that the rackets break and they die and I win by knockout, which is a lot easier said than done, because I've also been playing in doubles mode, and the doubles AI for the computer is really, really dumb. Yeah, so they'll do things like unnecessarily waste the energy you use to build up your special meter so you can hit special shots. They'll waste it doing trick shots completely pointlessly. Sometimes they'll just randomly get in your way when you're trying to hit a shot, and then you'll hit the back of their head instead of hitting it over the net. They'll steal your shots from you when you've set up a nice shot. They'll just like get in your way and take the shot for you. They're really bad at positioning on the court. So if you're covering one side, they'll run over to your side of the court to hit the shot and leave the other side of the court totally exposed. So the AI is really stupid, and you kind of have to work around it and work around the fact that it's gnawing at your special meter and wasting all your energy in order to win by KO. So it's kind of a frustrating challenge, but I enjoy it whenever it works out, because when you break an opponent's racket, they go like sliding across the court, and it looks like they're in pain, and it's really funny. So yeah, that's my experience with Mario Tennis Aces. Moving on, one thing we want to talk about, as we alluded to in the intro, is gaming conventions. And Kappa, you went to PAX this year, correct?
I did. It's been a little bit of a break for me in going there, but yeah, I finally made it back to the West Coast to go back to PAX Prime for the first time probably 4 years.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it was good to go back. But yeah, I definitely remembered some of the pros and cons as soon as I walked in.
So what are the pros and cons of cons?
Oh man, well, where to start? I mean, here's the thing. I think most people who have been to a convention can tell you that there's this weird curve of popularity, right? So I probably first started going to PAX, man, probably like 2006, 2007, something like that. When
that
it was
around
just
when it started up, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was like it was when it was its first year in the ANX. Is the first year that I went there. I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, 2006 was probably the first big year. So 2004 was the smaller year, and then 2007. That was the first year that I went there. Washington State Convention Center was the first year I went there, and that was pretty big. But I mean, we're still talking 40,000 people. And then I'm reading that this most recent one, has triple that. I mean, it's 80,000 plus, something like that. Which is
Like
you can feel
like a
it.
small city.
Yeah,
Basically.
you can feel it though. I mean, as soon as you get in there, you can feel the difference between how it used to be and how it is now. And they try to spread people out, and they do a pretty good job of kind of having all these different buildings and these different functions and stuff, off-site, on-site, stuff like that. But there's no way around that it's a big convention, and the lines show it. This year, one of my personal frustrations, I mean, I guess it depends who you are, but there was a lot of what they call line capping. So in other words, once a line is going to take, 2 hours to get through to a demo station, they'll put somebody at the back of the line with this sign that says lines capped. that means you can't get into that line. They will not allow you to get into that line. You have to come back and try to find out when the guy is no longer capping the line to let you go stand in line. So in effect, what happens is now you get lines to stand in lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
like they gather sort of outside the lineup area.
Right. One of the biggest examples of this was the Nintendo booth. Nintendo's booth was awful. I feel like if you go around and look on the internet and look up PAX and Nintendo booth, it'll be pretty roundly, pilloried for what they did. But they were capping the line at about 10 minutes. So in other words, they didn't want anybody waiting in line. So what would happen is you just get groups of people kind of walking these laps, waiting for, because they didn't want you standing there and they didn't want you waiting in line, but people still wanted to play, right?
Yeah. That sounds like a bad arrangement.
Yeah.
Like you'd want at least a half hour kind of queue.
Right. But it was really frustrating because the line wasn't long. It was just literally getting into the line was what took a long time. You know what I mean? So It was the weirdest thing going on. But then contrast that to what Sony did with their VR stuff. Their VR booths were, only one person at a time. They had kind of a long demo. What you had to do is go sign in on this mystical Sony app in order to get a playtime. However, I don't know if you guys have ever been to any kind of convention. You can barely get signal in places like this because literally everybody is, you know what I mean?
At least the Wi-Fi gets overloaded.
Exactly. So the PlayStation app was pretty much useless. I had to do it the next day at my hotel in order to get in line to go play Tetris VR. And everything was basically as soon as the PlayStation app went up at 9 a.m., it was booked for the entire day by 9:03 a.m. You know what I mean? So you had to get in there. Ubisoft did something interesting where they had almost like a check-in desk, like at a hotel. You would go in, you would sign up, you would write your name down, you would give them an email address, and then they would say, okay, what time frames are you looking and what are you looking to play? So you could play The Division 2 at 11 a.m. and then come back and play Odyssey at 1 p.m. or, you could basically create your own schedule, which was a nice way to do it, I thought. Same thing went in there, though, that you basically had to go straight to the Ubisoft booth and get in line and tell them your playtime so that you could get in. However, what would always happen is they had pretty good-sized play booths. If somebody didn't show up for their scheduled time, they had a standby line. That was, to me, the best solution that I saw at the whole show for dealing with this kind of, back and forth.
It seems like going analog is best when you have shitty Wi-Fi. Yeah, and there was a lot. So just the convention experience is, it's a lot of line standing. It's a lot of judging booths for how they're set up, what they do, what they don't do, what they give away, what they don't give away. By far, the best booth of the show was Bless Unleashed. Bless is a failed MMO, and the developers who you played with were not at all, bashful with saying that it failed at release. I've never even heard of it, so that's why I'm assuming it's failed. What
they're basically doing is re-releasing it instead of an MMO. It's kind of like an action game, and I was able to play it, and they had so what you would do is they probably had 20 booths, which was nice. So you'd walk up, you'd play the demo, which was perfectly timed, about 5 minutes, right? And then what you would get is there was a random piece of swag you would get for playing that, whether it was a shirt, whether it was stickers, pins. They had a weird fox hoodie, it was fox ears, So,
oh, nice.
But the idea being keep people coming, right? Keep people playing, keep people in the booths trying to get those different things. But when you've got 20 demo stations and the demo's 5 minutes, it kept moving nicely. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was able to actually play all 3 classes, play the game 3 times, got what I wanted from the swag, but it didn't feel like it took anywhere near as long, for example, to play as Nintendo, who had a 30-minute demo in a 10-minute line. So I really think that this is going to be something that I would hope that companies start to look into. Things like demo length do matter. I particularly remember Spider-Man. Spider-Man was coming out basically the next week, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't particularly into waiting in line to play Spider-Man. It's just, you know what I mean? If I wanted to play it, I'd play it. But they kind of had a really long demo, and people would just sit there and play and play and play. And it's hard when you don't have that kind of, hard stop in a demo, whether it's timed, whether it's you get to this boss, stuff like that. It really lets those drag on.
I'm guessing the reason they do this is because they want to. It's probably the same demo they're using for press, and they don't want to give super short demos to press. And they also don't want to have a discrepancy in the demo between the press demo and the show floor demo, because then regular conference attendees will get angry and say, why didn't we get the same treatment?
You can see that in a lot of the games. Like on the game itself, it'll say, like in the bottom corner, it'll say like E3 2018 build, Gamescom build. Some would say PAX build. Some would say Tokyo Game. Like they all had what build you were playing. But the idea behind it being that like every company kind of goes into there, and I feel like they have an idea of what they want to hype, right? Yeah. What do we want to hype? And so like Spider-Man we want to hype the open world experience. We want to just let you jump in and do whatever, right? Whereas Bungie was there with Destiny, and they're like, we just want you to play our new game mode that's coming with Forsaken called Gambit. So you would play Gambit, a 4v4 match, 5 or 6 minute long matches, and then you'd be out of their booth. But the thing is like when you've got a lot of these more open world games coming out constantly, I'm talking mostly about big companies now, Sony, Microsoft, you know what I mean? Those bigger companies, they kind of want to get you in there, show you what to get hyped about in the game, get you out there, and then sell you the game, right? Yeah. That's their whole thing. When you go to the indie booths, it depends, right? Indie devs aren't, I don't know how to describe this. It used to be when you would go there back in the day, like indie devs were kind of like, oh, shucks, gee, come on up and play my game. Tell me what you think of it, It doesn't feel that way so much anymore. I mean, these guys are not, you very rarely see the guy in his garage tinkering anymore. It's more like, we're a studio of former this, former that, and here's our game. Tell us what you think, but make sure to pre-order. And the indie games kind of have a feel more of a lot more polish, a lot more work into it. But the demo stations they still have are like two computers set up, to play their game. And if you really want to get into it,
they're probably like funding it out of pocket, so they don't have
So the game has the production value, but the booth itself doesn't, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. Like, I'm thinking specifically of. Have you heard of Astroneer?
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Well, it's a very like hyped kind of a little more science leading version of No Man's Sky. They had a very cool looking booth setup, right? My kid was like, I gotta play this. He loves astronaut stuff. He loves space stuff. He really wanted to try it, but they only really had like 3 computers up and running with the demo, And for example, like one opened up, but it was keyboard and mouse, and he's really not where he should be with keyboard and mouse. So we had to wait for a controller one and stuff. The guys are very nice. But like when you've got a game like that has a hype level to it that maybe in the past only bigger games would have gotten, but you don't have the demo space, it's got to be frustrating for them, right? Because I'm sure there's the pressure of, hey, let's kick these guys off who are just here to play the game and get the sticker or whatever, the badge or the pin or whatever, and let's get some more people in who might actually buy the game. But at the same time, you don't want to treat your audience like that, right? So there's this constant ebb and flow. I don't know if you guys heard about this. This was kind of like a famous thing that happened this PAX. Some guy got kicked off of a demo for a press to play, which is a pretty common occurrence at a game show, right? Like,
so what's press to play exactly?
Oh, I'm sorry, press, like game press.
Okay.
Guy was demoing the game, and they were like, "Hey, you gotta go." Basically, this press person wants to play the game, and that was kind of a weird thing at PAX.
That's just like bad PR at the end
right.
of the day.
And PAX kind of was one of those places where it was like kind of the mantra was like, it doesn't matter if you're press, it doesn't matter if you're this is the one for all of us, right? This is the game convention for all of us. Kind of, however, it's not so much that anymore. I mean, honestly, it's just not. It's kind of a regular old game thing, like any other one. So do you know kind of just roughly what the I guess the ratio of like press correspondence to just average gamers are and something like that? So that's a really good question, because I feel like, for example, if I said, hey, we've got a podcast, we probably could have got press badges, which maybe not the best thing, right? Because it used to be press badges were like, when I would go to PAX, like the only people I would see with press badges were like guys carrying around cameras with G4, you know what I mean? Or like Tech TV or whatever it was, you know what I mean? But now it's like everybody with a game website, everybody with a podcast is kind of given these press badges, and they're given kind of those credentials that I think should really be reserved for, like, I don't know. So badges at PAX are something I do want to get into. This might be a PAX only thing, but I have a suspicion it's like this a little bit everywhere, right? E3 everywhere else, right? You got the regular Joe Schmo badge. You get in there, you go do whatever you want, right? So PAX had badges for content creators, so your YouTubers, your whatever. Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Mixer all had huge booths there, right? And so those
like, who's
streamers,
content creating for Facebook?
yeah, Facebook games. I don't know.
That's a thing?
Yes.
Like, Facebook has been like, and this sort of came out very recently. Facebook has just been completely artificially inflating their video numbers,
yes,
and like their content numbers. So like they're obviously not in the same level as Twitch or Mixer or YouTube, but they've been like mismeasuring what they claim they're measuring, and B, what they claim they're measuring is stupid.
It was very obvious too when we were there, because let me set the stage. So you've got, I'm sure you guys have seen conventions before, right? Floor space is a premium, right? Like, you know, Microsoft and Sony, like they've got like huge amounts of floor space, but then everybody else is kind of like fighting for little, you know, scraps of tables here and there type stuff.
Yeah.
Facebook had probably the fourth biggest area there. And it was this giant lounge, like really soft blue lighting, full of water and food, and just kind of like lounges and chairs and couches. But you could only go in there if you were a Facebook content creator. So this place is fucking empty. Like every single time I went by there was nowhere in there, right? Twitch had the same thing. Huge area, purple lighting, real relaxed. It was just for Twitch verified streamers to go in there and hang out, right? So
and
this
kind of, that place was much more packed.
Right, but it kind of it was actually, there was nobody at the Twitch one either, because most of the Twitch streamers are out playing the games. You know what I mean? Like, it was a really weird experience to see these lounges that were set up for like this like next tier of people, right? So remember, I was going back to the badges. So like, there was your content creator lounge. Look at all these Twitch gods, you know, sitting around on their couches drinking their free soda or whatever. And like, they wouldn't let you live stream from the Twitch area. So like, even like if you got to see one of your favorite streamers, you couldn't stream. So it was such a weird experience. I like Mixer a lot, and they kind of had the thing that made the most sense to me. So what they had was a demo station for Fortnite, and if you won a victory royale, you won an Xbox. But what they had in the meantime was just regular streamers shoutcasting you playing, right? So when you got into the top 10, someone would come over and start shoutcasting your Fortnite game, and if you won, they'd hand you an Xbox. That creates like a different kind of buzz than like, look at these gods here relaxing in their lounge, right? So I thought that was a little bit better done than some of the other ones.
Don't get me wrong, I understand why they have separate badges for content creators. It's just, it's weird to tier it like that, to create a sort of like class system for a convention.
And that's what a lot of the complaints were about this year about PAX, was you've stratified it too much. Not to mention that, so in the first hour before the show opens, game developers who have badges that say exhibitor could basically go and play other people's games. It's designed to be kind of like a fun thing. Hey, I want to go check out, you know. But what ended up happening is like everybody and their mom has exhibitor badges. I mean, it's ridiculous who has exhibitor badges. So you get into the show. Like, we would wait in like 2 hours to get in, to be towards the front of the line. And by the time you get in there, there's already lines. And it's press and exhibitors. And I think they give medical professionals like early access because they might get called, you know, like in case of an emergency or something. But you would walk in after waiting 2 hours in line to find out there's already lines, you know, and it's all content creators and exhibitors. And it's such a weird feeling. I mean, I don't think there's right answers. I don't think there's, you know, wrong answers. And there's probably a lot of give and take, but it definitely kind of feels like, you know, what they were doing this year didn't feel right to be like the average person who just kind of had to resign themselves to being second, third class citizens the whole time.
Yeah, that doesn't seem kind of healthy for a community focused gaming convention. Like I understand, like if it's E3, obviously, then yeah, press, content creators take priority. But PAX is supposed to be like the inverse of that.
Right, and that's what a lot of people were saying. And like I think a lot of the feedback has been, hey, let's get rid of these streaming booths. You know, they don't make sense in the grand scheme of things. Let's cut down on the number of press. Let's make exhibitors actually be exhibitors and not the guy who helped, hang up some posters in a room gets an exhibitor badge. The enforcers there, I mean, they're general. I was an enforcer one year, I guess, full disclosure. I did it once, so I know how kind of like cool and awful it is. They try their best, but I mean, really, they're just, volunteers with a blue T-shirt on. You can't get mad at them. But yeah, I think that was kind of my, if talking pros and cons, that's kind of like the general gist of it. I think I've talked about a lot of cons, but the pros were, I mean, if you were willing to wait in the lines and deal through the stuff, you got to play a lot of really cool games, and I mean, straight up talk to developers, not like, I think I told this story to maybe you guys once about PAX, but I was playing. Do you guys remember there was like an Age of Empires Online that came out not too long ago?
I don't remember it.
A little bit.
It was kind of like a Facebook-y style game. It wasn't like Super Age of Empires, but it was like it was kind of like cartoony graphics. Everybody hated it, but I was sitting there playing it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. I did play the game a fair amount when it came out, and at PAX I was playing it, playing the demo version. I was talking to the guy, and the guy was like, "Yeah, I didn't know how this would take off. There's a lot of ideas about it, but I remember kind of having these same discussions right before we released Age of Empires, and I thought he was talking about, this one." I was like. He's like, no. I was part of the original Age of Empires development team. I was like the lead, whatever guy. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, like, so you get to really have that kind of experience where you're sitting down there.
Beat your heroes, kind of.
Yeah. And unfortunately, one time that was Randy Pitchford, but the rest of the times it's been, me.
I am his chief of staff. So.
I told that story here, right? He lied to my face about Aliens, and I bought it and regret it to this day. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I actually don't think you told that story.
Oh, yeah. So one year at PAX, this was when Aliens was rolling out. And what they did was they had you play the developer.
I'm sorry, are we talking about the Colonial Marines?
Colonial Marines, yeah. So they had, they had
hard breaker.
Yeah, oh. It was rough. They had you play the developers, right? And like as you were playing, like you could talk to them, and there was a lot of like, oh yeah, in the real release, this is what's going to happen. And we played basically, one of those bullshit versions of it, where it was like, you thought you were playing the whole game, but it was really just like a super nice death match that they set up explicitly for this, And I was asking, and then like Randy Pitchford was standing in line answering questions about the game. I was like, hey, how long is this? Oh, you probably play 40 hours of this, just like answering all these questions. And I was like, well, what about the story? He's like, it's actually signed off. It's actually full canon, Aliens full canon. It's part of the series by, by Ridley Scott himself. This is a continuation. And then I played the game and I'm like, wait, no, it's not. Like, it can't be. I don't know if you guys have played it yet, but spoilers. There's some characters that pop up that you're like, wait, isn't this guy supposed to be dead?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that kind of stuff, and he had no qualms about just telling a line full of people whatever BS he felt like saying at the time, when we were clearly playing stuff that wasn't in the game at all. That was the PAX experience that one year for me. But I mean, video game conventions in general, I think they're interesting. I don't know, micro or macro, depending on how you look at it, of gamer culture in general. You get a lot of people in there who represent the I don't take a shower and I'm here with my anime body pillow to just play. You know what I mean? To stand in line for this one game and play it over and over and over again, because that's my game, right? And then you've got a lot of other people who are just there to I'm just here to play the AAA titles. I don't care what's going on or whatever. Or I'm just here to see my favorite streamers. Or I'm here to play as much Fortnite as I can. Or I'm here for the swag because I like free stuff. But it's interesting to put all those people in one area and see kind of how it all shakes out. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah.
You'd be surprised. Yeah.
I feel like the stereotype is kind of like the first group of people. Not to say they don't exist, but I think they're a relatively small
They are.
contingent of
They're
the gaming
very
community.
small. But I mean, but those
Yeah.
are the kind of people that, like they stand out just because of how they are, But
Yeah, I get that
lots
sense
of people
as
like
well.
me, I'm here with my kids and my wife, and and like there was some times like this kind of annoyed me at the Destiny booth, right? My kid and my wife play Destiny. They're both pretty good. I mean, but like I remember someone saying like, "Well, just let me take that kid's place. He's not going to play." And I was like, "No, he's going to play." And he actually did really well. He did fine. But like it's those kind of folks, that we deal with usually in an online setting, that when you see them in the real world, you're like, "Oh yeah," it's like you're reminded those people exist. And I got to
Yeah, you think it's like the online disinhibition effect. Like people are kind of meaner online, but then you realize no, some people are just jerks in the real world too.
Right. Yeah. And there's not a lot of that at PAX. PAX is a very friendly place. I mean, it really is. It's a good convention, but I just hope they figure out how to solve some of this, 2-3 hour lines to play Mario Party. I mean, I feel like somebody needs to sit down less with the people who run PAX and more with the developers and say, this is what we expect you guys to bring in here. I mean, one game I really wanted to try was the Resident Evil remake, right?
Yeah.
And like they had like a line where you go into a theater and you watch a movie, and it was like, but every single time I went there, the line was capped, and it was like word kind of got out. Yeah, it's probably not what you play is probably not worth waiting in line for, So I think that's one of those things that like I hopefully developers start to take into account is how do we get people moving through here and playing what we want them to see our game, but in a way that makes sense and with enough demo stations and bringing enough juice to get it through that people don't get frustrated with us instead of like our games. And in that way, I think PAX is just like a lot of places, and it's a victim of their success where, E3 kind of goes through that, do we let general public in or not a lot, right? So does Gamescom. I think Gamescom right now is press only, right? I'll have to check on that.
I don't know. I know E3 opened up to general public earlier it was this year, right?
Yeah,
opened
yeah.
up to general
But
public for the first time.
it's kind of gone back and forth, I think, a few times where, like, I think way back E3 used to be. But either way, I think a lot of these conventions struggle with how do you get the general public, us, in to play and do stuff versus, make it this press junket where you give them tightly controlled experiences to write exactly what you want them to write about, right? I mean, games used to be revealed at PAX. And you see that less and less, I think, because you don't get that directed experience as much.
It's also hard to control the narrative these days coming out of conventions. Whereas if you just like put up a trailer beforehand or hold like a special press event for the game, then you like specifically control the narrative.
Well, like for example, I'll just use this for example. There's the new Total War Shogun. I can't remember if it's Shogun or not, but anyway, it's a feudal Japan type Total War game, right? So a real-time strategy game, right? Your opinion of that game is going to be based a lot on how good or bad you are at that type of game. So I went there with my buddy who mostly just plays console shooters. Good guy, but that's his bag, right? So he played that for like 20 minutes. Like, this game sucks. You know what I mean? And I was like, are you kidding? Look at all these unit types, and you can challenge the enemy general to a duel instead of a fight army versus, like to me, it was amazing. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, though. If you can't control that experience, you got one guy who, tweets out or whatever, oh man, don't waste your time with Total War. It sucks, because that's just not his genre versus somebody else who's like, oh man, wait till you see the depth of this new, So you don't get that when it's just all press, right?
Yeah.
So, well, hopefully you don't. I don't know. There was that one guy who couldn't beat the tutorial Cuphead.
That was a whole a really annoying thing that
was an ordeal. I
don't think people really parse that the right way. Anyway, but that's a whole other saga.
So, do you? I mean, as a regular old gaming schlub, as a non press like related professionally Twitch streamery kind of gaming schlub, is PAX something worth checking out?
I'd say yes, but I would only do it in conjunction with like other stuff in the area. I wouldn't try to do what I did, which was 3 nonstop days of PAX. It'll get to you. I mean, there's no doubt that standing in line that long to do stuff, especially with small kids and stuff, wasn't a great idea, But like there was enough in there, and luckily I had my wife with me who does like games, but like she can give or take a lot of games, and I met a couple of my good friends up there from when I lived there. So, there's a lot of after hour things. There's a lot of side things, a lot of things. Like Fortnite had a giant outdoor parking lot, more or less, that they built a giant tent over, and they had $1 million tournament. The winner got $1 million. Bethesda basically rented out this Hard Rock, and it was free food and drinks. I think it was a 2-drink coupon and free food, and you just basically got to hang out with Bethesda guys and talk to them about their games. They would literally come right up to your table and be like, "Hey man, what Bethesda games you play?" and talk to you about their games. It was amazing. But like there's a lot of that kind of stuff where if you do decide to go to PAX, like try to figure out the whole picture of it, because if you spend 3 days on the show floor, you're gonna want to kill everybody there.
Yeah, that seems like a good way
advice.
to end our discussion.
There's a lot to do. PAX is so much bigger than just the show floor, and that's the one thing I tell people is like, there's like free arcade games you can play. There's a console free play. You can bring your own computer and LAN game with people. Like, there's a lot to it. But like,
and there's the whole like tabletop aspect of it too, right?
Yeah, they have like a board game library where you can just check out a game, and a lot of times they have makers of that game there that'll sit down and teach you how to play their game. That's a very popular
that's
thing
pretty
there.
Cool.
Yeah,
I like the idea of that.
Yeah, you can sit down and like they have tons and tons and tons of board games, like a whole annex full, and you sit down and you play with them, and you're like, hey, I want to try a game that's like fantasy risk, but you have to go on quest, and the cards, it has a trading card game to it. Okay, yeah, here's the game you want to play. It's made by these guys. They'll come over and they'll teach you the rules of it, and maybe sometimes even play with you and stuff. So there is a ton to PAX. So I mean, what you hear me complain about is just the show floor, but all that stuff is almost always what you would want in like a community gaming convention, right? People sitting down with each other, playing games, talking about stuff. So I mean, there's a lot to recommend about PAX. So I would say, yeah, it's something. If somebody said, should I go to a PAX? I'd say yes. Should you plan on going every single year, and should you just be just on the show floor? No, you got to kind of look at it as like if you go to Disneyland, right? Like if you spend all your time on the show floor, it'd be like, okay, I'm never leaving Tomorrowland. Like that's the only part of the show you're seeing. So I'd say just go kind of with the idea of there being a lot out there past just that one area.
Makes sense.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's an interesting look at gaming conventions. So the other topic we wanted to discuss today, and we're going to switch gears entirely now, it's kind of been prompted by some recent events in the games industry that by now have happened quite a long time ago. So first, a few weeks ago now, I think almost a month ago now, Telltale shut its doors. They were the makers of The Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, Minecraft Story Mode, etc. And they abruptly shut down, had no advance notice. All the projects were put on hold or canceled, except for a skeleton crew finishing up Minecraft. And they gave the rest of The Walking Dead to Skybound Games. And people were let go with no severance, and it started a conversation about labor issues in the games industry that has continued with recent revelations about Rockstar, where the studio head Dan Houser recently kind of got in trouble for bragging in an interview about the 100-hour work weeks that people were putting in. He later clarified that he was only really talking about the writing team and for a 3-week period. Whether or not you believe him, that's kind of besides the point. It did start off this investigation started off, this conversation about crunch culture and making people work overtime in the video game industry. And moreover, at around the same time, Kotaku journalist Jason Schreier was preparing an investigative report into rumors of overtime and overwork at Rockstar Studios, and it turns out that there has been problems with this at Rockstar during both the development of the recently released Red Dead Redemption 2 and some of their other video games. So let's, I guess, start with Telltale. How do you folks feel about the whole studio closure thing?
Whew, I never like to say good for them. I'm glad they lost their jobs. But I think I've seen this coming for a long time with Telltale, right? I mean, I definitely have been not into anything they've put out in a long time. And I kind of feel like they've been treading water and making some decisions, I think, that were really kind of iffy as far as the brand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here. So around the time that the studio closed down, of course, we should, first and foremost, you should feel bad for the developers who lost their jobs. A lot of commentators were suggesting that Telltale, management, sort of did this to themselves. They were the people who, by mandating the kinds of games they developed, kind of engineered Telltale's downfall. And then there's this immediate swift backlash to that, saying, no, this is a really bad take. It has nothing to do with the kinds of games they were making. This is just purely about how labor was managed. And honestly, I think the former group is kind of right. Again, it's not the developers' fault for making the games they were told to make.
Right.
But
but they're
they made the same game over and over and over again. People
right.
started losing interest, and
I think that was the problem with latter day Telltale. Is that they kind of for, I guess, lack of a better word, they got typecast as the company that's going to make a cel-shaded, adventure-y sort of, almost, I guess, whimsical
narrative adventure.
Right. An adventure game in a time when adventure games just aren't popular enough to really be profitable.
And they're also licensing to do that, right? So, I mean,
no
Guardians of the
IPs.
Galaxy don't come cheap, right? You know? I don't know. I mean, I feel like we've talked a lot about Telltale on here. I mean, I know we had a pretty good episode about Batman, and we've talked about their games, and it's just, I can't remember. Wolf Among Us was probably the last time I cared about a Telltale game, and
yeah, that still had, I think, some of the old writing staff before they left.
And I think their engine got kind of old and tired, and I think what really killed them, though, is the whole illusion of choice was exposed, right? I mean, I didn't care that Clementine would remember what I told her, because it didn't matter. It changed my game 0% versus my friend who told her something else.
Right.
So
definitely that was the same case with something like Tales from the Borderlands. It's the same game, very different style of, I suppose, art, very different genre, but still essentially the same game. Where Loaderbot, who is an incredibly engaging character in his own right, would still ultimately nothing about his fate, nothing about how he influences your character's fate changes.
And that's frustrating when it's because nobody's playing that for the gameplay, right?
Right. There is no gameplay.
Push the X or so I don't know. I liked what Telltale did, and I think there's a cool spot for them, in gaming history. And I don't want them purged from our records or whatever. But I feel like that's a good example of somebody who kind of sat on their laurels far too long and tried not to do anything new. And just kept putting out the same old thing until people were like, "No, I'm done with this."
If I could tie it back to computering history, Telltale reminds me a lot of Commodore and Atari between the late 80s and the early 90s. It was a company, both companies had, an incredible talent team and an incredible innovation, but they rested on the laurels. They relied too much on an install base that just disappeared out from underneath them.
Yeah, in this case, I think so. There are two things that I'd like to address here. First of all, so for me, just to sort of push back against it slightly, I don't think they ran up so much against the limitations of the illusion of choice. We know that the decision tree in a video game can't be super vast because they have to program all of this. I think what sort of started frustrating people was when you'd make a decision and then it would just like the game would very apparently make it not matter to you. Like you'd make a decision and then the events of the game would just immediately invalidate it.
Well,
And that happened a lot, say in like The Walking Dead season 2.
Right.
And the other thing, like to Glitch's point that I want to point out is, I think they relied. I mean, you talk about like the install base. I think they relied a lot on people saying like, "Oh, I like The Walking Dead, and I like this particular style of game, so I'm going to check out Batman or Game of Thrones or what have you." And it wasn't really so much that they're relying both on the license and also their sort of inbuilt fan base jumping to these other licenses, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, but like even if you think about like, so they made a Game of Thrones game. I mean,
Yeah.
at a time
Nobody
when
talks
Game of
about it
Thrones
anymore.
was the hottest. Yeah, the amount of stuff they of license they had is impressive. It's just you just kind of felt like it was back in the day of when licensed material was like, okay, here's the Telltale version of it, and it really didn't do much. And you would play as like characters that not really, Yeah, did you guys play the Game of Thrones game at all?
No, I have
Yeah.
not. I'm sorry.
So I mean, it's basically like, okay, like Tyrion will walk in and do half a scene or something, but like you were basically just these nobodies from this nobody house doing this, parallel journey type thing, which I don't think is great for the brand, you know?
I think that might be a
Like, if anything, it
limitation of the
dilutes the
license.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It's something, it's a case where, they're trying to tell a narrative, but they can't be allowed to step on the narrative, on AMC's narrative or an HBO's
Right.
narrative.
Yeah, and the stuff that they're allowed to do just kind of sits there. Like, here's a good example though. Like, so Walking Dead season 1, right? You remember there's that choice where you have to you either save the woman who's like a journalist maybe, or
Yeah.
the guy who's like a computer programmer.
Something like that. Yeah.
When that happened, when I was playing that episode, I was like, oh man, maybe down the line there's going to be a scenario where I have to program a computer, or I have to, have a charismatic person to go talk to people about, you know what I mean? Like, so I better take my time and really plan this one out, because who knows? And then the next episode, either one you chose got shot in the face, like for no reason. It didn't make any kind of story sense or anything. It was just like, yeah, here you go, shot in the face.
And just
that's
like by comparison, like think of like say the Caden versus Ashley decision in Mass Effect that just reverberates through the entire
Right.
series. And like that's a pretty simple choice. Like it's just save one person or save the other, but they actually make it matter.
Yeah.
And here it just feels like, yeah, you're making all these difficult Sophie's choices, but they never really amount to much. Like even like within the experience of playing the game, like you don't even have to go outside and compare your decision tree to your friend's decision tree.
Right.
You just look at what happens within the events of the game, and it feels like whatever you do, the game will just fuck you over regardless. So why
Yeah.
even bother?
yeah,
I
don't know.
I think part of this is just like they were working ridiculous schedules and they just don't have time to hammer out these really intricate narratives with more complicated decision trees or account for more contingencies than planned or record all this extra dialogue because they're on such a tight schedule. And I think when you put games on such a tight schedule, they're just not going to be produced as well as you want them to be.
Yeah,
And that to me is on management.
there's something.
Yeah.
There's something that I've seen brought up a couple of times with the recent Red Dead controversy and a bunch of other stuff. That's like, it's the first time I've kind of seen this kind of narrative, I guess, in game, because we've known about crunch and everything forever, right?
Yeah.
But I think it kind of gets down to, is it worth it? Like, is all that effort, all that man hours, is it worth it to make a tie-in to Guardians of the Galaxy that I don't know how many people
like
play.
10 people played.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think you could make the argument for like maybe Red Dead being worth it. It looks like it's a genre-defining, once in a lifetime type game where a lot of sacrifices were made and some people burned out. But anybody who worked on that can step back and say, yeah, I've made something that's like well, once in a lifetime type game. Is anybody saying that about the Game of Thrones Telltale game? You know, or like
Not really.
so.
Like, and even to your point about like people kind of burning out in Red Dead. So there are a lot of developers who spoke anonymously said, like, the crunch was terrible and I wish we didn't have to do it. And no, I don't think it was worth it. But at the end of the day, not a single one of them said, "Don't buy our game in protest."
Yeah, and
like they all said, "We want you to experience the work we made. We just think management was shitty, and if we had to do it again, I wouldn't have done it. But like now that it's out."
And what I've been seeing more with like Red Dead now is more narrative. Like, well, was it worth it to have all this stuff for things in the game that are just seem like they're there to be an annoyance to the player? Like the specific example I heard was the bathing sequence. Like, you don't just push a button to get in a tub, and your character, like, you have to wash your arm, wash your leg, wash your hair. Like everything is its own thing, and it's like, well, if one guy had to spend 500 hours making that, was that worth it?
Probably
it's a good
like,
point. I mean, for the amount of, I've spent all of 2 hours playing Red Dead Redemption 2 so far, and I mean, there was a lot of circumstances where, there were button prompts to say, press Y to lash your horse, and then press X or press left trigger, and then press X to
pay respects.
Right. Exactly. Press whatever random button combination it takes to move this to the plots forward in what is essentially a tutorial section of this video game.
It's like a David Cage game.
Yeah. A lot of people have been saying that it adds to the immersion in some ways, but in the other ways,
really
it's like
doesn't though.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like, fuck it. Let me watch a cutscene so I can eat a sandwich while this is happening.
Exactly.
Like, I don't mind cutscenes. That's my eating time,
Yeah.
Like these games, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna be more immersed if I have to press X or triangle to advance a cutscene. It's just not how I engage with games. And like, speaking of superfluous details, does anybody give a shit if horse testicles change in size with temperature?
Do they?
Yeah.
Apparently that's in the game.
Rockstar.
Like the horse testicles shrink in cold weather for male horses.
Something that doesn't
Good
necessarily
for them. That was worth the extra 2 months of development right there.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that, like, I don't know if I'd be willing to say that's worth some guy having to miss his kid's birthday party or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that it is worth some guy missing his kid's birthday party.
Now you're just gonna be looking at the horse testicles the entire time.
I will be doing nothing but I'm gonna be eyeballing them horses' junk swinging in the wind there, and just admiring the physics engine every time I go up to the top of a mountain.
Literally, no other video game even like has horse genitalia on the horse models.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played it, honestly, but I don't know. I mean, like, there's never been a good answer or good feeling when it comes to when it comes to how we should feel about crunch, right? Or how we should feel about, like, as a gamer, because it's been going on forever. I mean, I remember like early Command and Conquer stuff, I just don't know what's necessary, what's not necessary. I mean, I've been on projects for my own job where we have versions of crunch time, and like, because of what I do, every time we have a hurricane, I have to spend, tons and tons of time calling people, but that's part of my job, but I don't know what these guys sign on for and what's an acceptable level and what isn't.
Yeah, it's hard when we're not really, excuse me, in the industry ourselves. I think just sort of like as a general rule of thumb, I can understand, crunching for a couple of weeks to meet a deadline. I understand that sometimes it's hard to kind of plan around that. It's when you hear stories of people spending 5-6 months in crunch that you're wondering, okay, is this project even being managed properly?
Yeah.
Are people are managers treating their employees in a way that makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't think you can keep up crunch for 6 months and still be an effective employee whose personal life doesn't get ruined in the process.
Yeah. Right. That's a good point. I mean, it's a fine line between, crunch being something that you're working towards, and then crunch being something that just fucking ruins your life.
Yeah, and I hate to be super evil capitalist about it, but I think kind of the results do matter. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're crunching to put out so many of those games that nobody ever, plays, versus if you're crunching to put together, a genre-defining game, like I was saying before, I'm sure it feels different in the studio, and it feels different for the people working on it. And you can probably look back with a little bit more pride if you were on the team that made Fortnite versus the team that made, Daikatana. Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean, even in those cases, you're not gonna know which team you're on.
Yeah,
more or less until that thing ships.
I think they've got an idea.
I sort of get that's even
maybe I'm being naive, but I mean, I would kind of hope not. Honestly,
sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I think I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I get the sense that there's sometimes when devs are sort of blindsided by the reaction to a game. I think that was very much the case with Battleborn. They did not expect it to be the flop that it was.
Yeah.
Or say like Lawbreakers. I don't think anybody thought that would end up being the flop that it was. But like I think I got the sense based on the investigation that like Jason Schreier did for Kotaku that all these people understood the quality of the game they were working on. And for me personally, kind of coming at this from a more sort of like, let's say, pro-labor perspective, not to say you guys are being like anti-labor or anything. I don't see that the quality of the game is like super relevant to whether or not it was worth it in the end. But I don't want to invalidate the pride that developers feel, even if they're crunching on something that they know will turn out to be good. I got the sense also from like the Telltale investigations that a lot of the burnout, like if you know you're working on something really generic or that's just being sort of churned out, it does affect morale more adversely. That's why you get this churn at Telltale that you keep hearing about, whereas you didn't get the same amount of churn at Rockstar. You just had like lifers being forced to crunch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a game developer in any respect, but I've done product development as a salaried employee kind of guy, and I mean, there's a certain pride of achievement that you experience when what you're working on finally comes to fruition, and it works. I've never had to deal with shipping numbers or popularity or that kind of stuff, but just delivering a product that works in the way that you wanted it to, or even better than what you wanted it to, is I mean, I guess it's an ego stroke if nothing else.
It's like, I think what I come back to is I acknowledge that if you work on something that is good versus working on something that is bad, you're obviously going to feel better about the former. It's just, I don't think that like the ego stroke you get is enough of a justification for management to treat
absolutely
their employees as like disposable labor.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So that's sort of where I'm falling on this. Like, I acknowledge the Rockstar situation is different from Telltale. I mean, for one thing, Telltale is just poorly financially managed in a way that Rockstar isn't. Like, the reason Telltale fell apart so quickly is because they thought they could secure financing for more projects, and then the people pulled out at the last minute and they just had to shut down. They didn't communicate this to their employees, that's why they got blindsided. Whereas I don't think Rockstar is in danger of financial insolvency anytime soon.
I doubt it. Not if my $60 has anything to say with.
I wonder
GTA Online just prints money.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I wonder what percentage or portion or whatever episodic content plays into this. I know a lot of people who just basically never played Telltale games or those games because the episodic part of it turned them off completely. And I'm wondering, did Telltale never did really? All their games were episodic, right? They never really did like a full like, hey, just here's a release, right?
Their old Poker Night games were standalone.
Mm-hmm.
But those were in the pre-Walking Dead era.
Yeah.
And even before and Jurassic Park was also a full game, not episodic. But they were doing episodic games before The Walking Dead. Like they did Sam & Max, they did Tales of Monkey Island, which I think is super underrated. And then they sort of jumped into, once The Walking Dead became popular, that was just the format for all their games going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I just wonder, like, because, that was a business model that I don't think had been super tested out before them, right? And then they seem to kind of stick to it even through financial issues. I wonder why that never became something like, hey, let's stop doing this and just start releasing full games.
Because I think the episodic model ended up working pretty well for some other games. Like, Life is Strange did amazingly well for Square Enix based on what I've heard. And, that was the same sort of format as Telltale games. I think Life is Strange sort of did the formula a little better, if I'm being honest. But, episodic games have worked financially. It's, I think, the fact that all of Telltale's episodic games were the same and they were dealing with some licenses that might not have been as popular for that format that kind of did them in. I'm not sure it was like the episodic format in particular, but I don't know. It's hard to tell because like I'm not on the inside.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. I just don't know. I don't know what the solution eventually would have been for Telltale, other than they probably were so upside down with all the licenses and stuff. I mean, it doesn't sound like anybody was willing to take a chance.
On their own IP, which they've never done, to be fair. Aside from Poker Night, but that even was taking licensed characters from other franchises with some original characters and just throwing them all into a blender.
But like, it doesn't sound like there was an IP rights sell-off that anybody wanted to jump on them and pick them up even. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of just... I don't know. I
think that's all probably still being sorted out because they're technically still operational while they're winding down Minecraft. So they still have like a skeleton crew of people working there. Maybe once they officially shut down in a few months, then we'll start seeing a fire sale. But yeah, I don't know if anybody's going to jump on those licenses. I'm guessing The Wolf Among Us Season 2 is never going to happen. There's not going to be another season of Batman.
Because usually, I mean, you get like what happened with who was the Darksiders guys? THQ.
THQ, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it seemed like as soon as they announced, people started going crazy with who's going to buy what. I haven't heard almost any of that.
Yeah, I think it's more. I mean, it might just be that the license, because they're licensed that Telltale themselves doesn't own. That you have to kind of renegotiate the rights through the original rights holder. I don't really know anything about law. I'm guessing it might be something like that, and they haven't officially shut down yet. There's a bunch of factors there, but yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be scooping up a Wolf Among Us video game license anytime soon. As much as I like that world, yeah, it's
kind of run its course. Yeah.
So I don't know. Telltale is not a tale of a studio that was just not super well managed, and
it's probably a tale of a studio that kind of flared out. I mean, it was a product of its time, and the time just didn't move with it, I suppose. Telltale is maybe something that really would have just shown 20 years ago. Telltale could have been the next LucasArts games.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There was that feeling, like right around Walking Dead, it felt like it. It felt like they were going to be a whole new, like, I don't know, like almost like a thing specific to themselves. And then it's just, man.
I was hoping that they would, like, I'm cool with them making episodic adventure games with licenses from here to infinity. What I think they really messed up was that they used the same basic format going forward. So they took out all the puzzles. They made this whole you'll remember this choice and consequences thing, and they just didn't need to do that for every game.
Right.
Like I would have been fine with say a Tales from the Borderlands that threw in some more action elements, or a Wolf Among Us that threw in more investigative and puzzle elements. Rather than tough moral choices. I didn't need that in every episodic adventure game. There's a lot to do within the episodic adventure game space that, Life is Strange, Kentucky Route Zero, The Council, etc. have been showing how to do. They've all been tweaking the formula in ways that Telltale could have been doing themselves.
The Council feels so revolutionary, and it's so close to a Telltale game. You know what I mean? It's just like they took every lesson that Telltale should have learned and put it in a game. And whenever I haven't played it, but I've watched a ton of gameplay of it. Like I've watched like a lot of Let's Play through the first couple of episodes, and it feels revolutionary in a way that it really shouldn't, because it's basically just iterating on what Telltale did, you know?
Yeah, and Telltale, that's my point. Telltale could have done that themselves if they were not so up their own asses in just trying to replicate the Walking Dead formula over and over and over again.
Yeah, and even when it didn't even make sense, like the Game of Thrones whole, Game of Thrones has a lot of tense decisions and stuff like that, for specific people to make, but it doesn't make sense to shoehorn that style of play into a game when, Game of Thrones feels...
Why the fuck is that in Minecraft story mode?
Right.
I was wondering that too.
What moral choices do you need to make about boxes?
Yeah.
That was, you could make an argument for Game of Thrones being a A or B choice, adventure-y, gamey, who's it's whatever, but Minecraft? No.
Yeah.
Like fucking Tales of the Borderlands. What fucking moral choices should there be? Just like, let me loose with some like fucking guns and let me quip and shit,
I guess my thing more about Game of Thrones was like, you knew that it wasn't going to have a bearing on anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, because the story's you're still set in the Game of Thrones world. So whether you go for the Starks or the Targaryens or whoever, it doesn't matter. You're playing in a format that the story's already set. And it's not like Walking Dead where it's like characters that don't exist within the story. It's like, no, here I am with the Lannisters, so it's really weird to me that was a thing that they went for. But yeah, they made a lot of weird decisions just as a company in the way they took some of their games. I don't want to say I don't feel bad, but I saw it coming. There's no way I couldn't, I don't know.
I was blindsided, and it's because I mistakenly believed that because of their licenses, they were selling better than I thought they were. And it turns out it was just Minecraft and The Walking Dead that did well. Like, even Batman flopped. How do you flop a Batman game?
It's been done.
I can tell you exactly why. Have you heard anything? I think, Flax and a couple other people talked about Batman here.
Yeah.
You had to be either like into a series doing that, like recreating the Joker dynamic where him and Batman were friends, or you're going to be a hardcore purist, but like, no, I'm not letting you do this with Batman.
Or you could just make a terrible Batman game. I'm thinking about the old PS2 Batman games.
Oh yeah,
there were some awful Batman games.
This one had
that era.
This one was really weird. I remember them talking about it on the podcast, and it was mostly like Batman and Joker kind of hang out, and like Batman's trying to convince Joker not to go down the road of crime, but the real villain is Harley Quinn, and a lot of people aren't willing to go.
That's a very bizarre take on their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole idea is that like Joker breaks Harley Quinn. It's kind of this weird abusive dynamic, right? And flipping it doesn't really feel subversive. It just feels really creepy and weird.
Yeah, they have kind of like Batman as Bruce Wayne going undercover with like Harley Quinn. There's a lot into it. It's just, I don't know. You'd have to check it out and try to figure it out yourself. But yeah, you're right. It's one of those things where I think you can't really mess with those types of formulas that much, or you're going to get the kind of people who should be interested in your game really uninterested really quick. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't mind them taking risks.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine, but like there's so many other ways they could take risks. They could just like make up a new villain. Like there's nothing stopping them from doing that, presumably, unless like DC's super jealous with the license and is just like, no, you can only use established characters. But like you can tell different types of stories with those characters without changing what makes those characters those characters. I don't know. It seems like they don't really like Rodkin and Vanneman left.
some of the best DC fiction has been what is the name of the fighting games that they've been releasing? Injustice. Yes, the Injustice games. Injustice and Injustice 2 has been some of the best fiction in the DC universe, at least in terms of I guess comic book format. It's pretty darn entertaining.
Oh yeah, and it's like, by the way, it's on sale on Humble right now if you don't have it.
Yeah, buy the games. They're great.
Oh, nice. So, like, what's unique about them as compared to how other DC games have approached their subject matter?
Well, I'm not really a DC video game aficionado, but it just seems like the motivation for everybody versus Superman, particularly in the first Injustice game, it's more natural. It makes more sense. It's more entertaining to play through. I don't want to spoil it.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
It probably takes maybe all of 2 hours to play through the story mode of Injustice, the original Injustice game. But it's fun.
Excuse me.
And I think they do actually a pretty darn entertaining job. More, probably much more than the last couple of movies. At least the ones that I've seen.
Yeah, I've kind of avoided. I shouldn't say I've avoided. I haven't checked out the DC cinematic universe at all. Mainly because I just don't. I either haven't had the time or really the interest. So I see a bunch of Suicide Squad memes. I'm like, I don't know what this shit means.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just labor in general with games. I kind of feel like we can probably look at where the movie studios and everything kind of went through their different processes, back in the day. I kind of feel like we're heading towards it's like that 19th, Hollywood, when Hollywood was in its 1920s gilded age, movies were making a ton of money and there's a lot of money in it and people were trying to get into it and get out of it and figure out how to get the most money out of it. Kind of feel like that's where we are with gaming right now. Do you know what I mean? The bigger studios know how to make the money, know how to get the money. They know where they're losing the money. And that's why you're seeing stuff like EA's we're not going to lose 30% per sale to Steam, And I think you're starting to see studios how it used to be, in the sense of we make the game, we publish the game, we get it out the door, we make the money, we put it right back into the next game. And I think you got to be either part of that or on the outside and looking to make your way into it. I know people hate it when EA or when Activision or whoever buys your favorite studio, but I mean, right now it keeps them from being another studio lost in the churn of not being able to make enough hits as quickly as they can.
Yeah, it's a strange time to see this kind of consolidation, and you're kind of seeing this polarization where the big studios are being bought up by publishers. They're kind of building everything in-house, and you have these really small indie studios, which would be an experimental film movement kind of on the outside. And it's interesting also you make the comparison to the film industry, because what happened to the film industry after the Gilded Age? They unionized.
Right.
And there's this there's a sense that, at least it's been a conversation for the past decade at least, that game developers have to unionize. You already saw that with the voice actor strike that happened, I guess, last year now. That was about the Screen Actors Guild union, right? Striking against companies that were exploiting voice actors and making them rub their vocal cords raw.
Wow.
And not telling them about say sexual content that might be in scenes. So they'd arrive at the recording booth and say, "Oh yeah, here, moan sexually for us." And that's you kind of want to prepare for that before you go into the booth. And there are problems with royalties and things like that. And they were able to eventually resolve the strike. I mean, they scabbed for a while, but the strike was eventually resolved because voice actors are unionized in a way that regular developers aren't. But the Game Developers Association doesn't seem like they really want to lead the charge on this. So I don't know when or if it's going to happen.
Unionizing, I think, is going to be hard for gaming, because it's it's like how Hollywood unionized. Like you've got all these different unions, right? Like you've got SAG, you've got the Directors Union, you've got the producer. You know what I mean?
Guild, yeah.
Producers Guild. Yeah. So I feel like that's the only way that gaming could do it as well, because it'd be hard for you to tell a programmer that they have to strike because of a voice actor. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not the same in terms of, well, he does 2 hours of work, for 500 different companies where I only work just for this one company. So you'd probably have to see something similar, and that's a lot of work, man. And I mean, I'm not pessimistic. I think it's a good idea. It's just I'm pessimistic on the amount of organization it would take before EA or whoever would be like, fine, we're just going to, Sweden or Montreal, or like it's such a global industry right now.
Right.
It's easier just to pack up your studio and leave. Yeah, than
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but I have personally. I mean, I'm not a game developer, but I am an IT geek, and personally, I have been through more than one outsourcing, where essentially, the company that I work for pulls up stakes and ships the entire labor force overseas. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's part of it, right? Like, if you can say, well, we can get we can lock out the programmers guild or whatever and just get this all done in India, or Russia or wherever else we want to do it, and then we're just going to freeze that whole union out. You can't really do that with movies. Do you know what I mean? You need all the parts of it to kind of come together. But
right,
yeah, like that's all done on site.
Right.
You can't direct a movie from Indonesia or whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They've probably tried.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough either about unions or about game development to know which parts would or wouldn't make sense. But I think more than that, I know people aren't going to want to hear this, but I think you got to start being a smarter consumer, And I mean, I'm not saying, do or don't buy games, but say, okay, well, maybe I get this game, used from GameStop, and, that my money doesn't go to support this or whatever, But I mean, you got to kind of make your voice heard in a way that makes you feel comfortable.
And if nothing else, like, this is going to sound really stupid and shitty, but like, tweet at companies and let them know you're not cool with their labor practices. And I know that probably doesn't affect much in the grand scheme of things, but
I think it makes an impact. There's nothing shitty about that. There's nothing shitty about
supposedly,
expressing your views.
Do you guys remember EA Spouse?
Yeah.
I mean, supposedly that had an impact. At least how EA handled crunch times for a while after. I mean, I don't know if it's back now, but I remember when that came out, people were like, "Whoa!" Like that was I don't know if it was the first, but it was definitely one of the times, people really eyes were opened to how it was.
Yeah, and by and large, I mean, you'll always get some shitty consumers who'll be like, oh, if you want to work in the industry, that's the price you have to pay, right? But like most consumers generally are like, oh, wow, I had no idea. This is really shitty. This should be reformed. Like people in general, if you explain what a crisis or a problem is, they'll generally be sympathetic. And by and large, the reaction to finding out about, the culture of crunch at Rockstar, by and large, that reaction has been, hey, wait, something actually does need to change.
Yeah.
Like consumers have not been like,
and getting
fuck
back
the devs.
That's what I liked about Kotaku's article or review is it was like, yeah, all this stuff shows in the game, but was it worth it? And I think that's a really good question to ask. Was the shrinking testicles worth it?
I'd say yes.
So I think that's going to be something kind of we keep doing. I mean, I think you can make a great game without that,
Yeah. I mean, in all seriousness, I am 100% in favor of a game taking longer in the development cycle. If I have to sit and wait another 2, 3, 4 months, whatever it takes, for a game to be complete, for a complete video game to ship, as opposed to a buggy mess delivered by people who haven't slept in 2 weeks, I will happily take I will sit and wait for the game. I have no problem with that.
The other thing I'll say is, and maybe this isn't always a solution, but like especially for a studio like Rockstar, if individuals are saddled with so much work that they're staying overtime, just like hire more people. You know, you guys are swimming in cash. You can hire more developers to spread the load a little bit.
Well, in the case of a dev studio like Rockstar, they have the ability to sit on a game until it's done.
Yeah,
their release schedule is so Spartan. It's so, I mean, everybody expects the next Grand Theft Auto coming out of this studio, or the next Red Dead Redemption or whatever to come out of this studio. That we're willing to wait. We don't need this shit coming out, pre-holiday season, Christmassy, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, and they've shown a willingness to like just straight up cancel projects before. Like there was the, excuse the name because it's the actual name of the project, I think unfortunately named Horror of the Orient, that they ended up canceling.
I miss it on that one.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to change the name before they released it.
Good idea, guys.
Yeah, and like Agent is probably dead, and that's been rumored for like a decade now, practically. So Rockstar's willing to cancel huge projects.
And there was a pretty interesting article that almost all the royalties are going directly to who are the owners?
The Housers?
Housers, yeah. Almost all the royalties go directly to them because of how Rockstar is set up. So there's not like a way that the money goes back to the average person. You know what I mean? So yeah, the game might sell like gangbusters, but it's just the people up top getting all of it. It doesn't really matter, So I don't know. I mean, I feel like with Rockstar, it's kind of its own world compared to everybody else. Because yeah, you're right. They can totally just sit there and sit on a game, and the studio is going to suffer none because by the time they say, okay, you know what, we're going to actually make Bully 2, it's going to sell 1 trillion copies. I kind of feel like Blizzard is in that same space too, right? Like whatever Blizzard puts out, when they want to put something out, it's going to sell 1 trillion. But not all studios are like that. A lot of them have to have that cycle, that churn of, here's the next new thing. They can't afford to just sit there and be stagnant. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see kind of the next couple of years. But Rockstar is going to release Red Dead for PC, right? I mean, or something like that.
Probably another 5 or 10 years from now, maybe, if we're lucky.
But I feel like
given their current track record.
But they might never have to make another Red Dead game for another 10 years. But they're the rare exception. So yeah,
like every other studio, like say Visceral shut down because they couldn't get a project going.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's crazy how many studios are just one bomb, one failure away from. I mean, we talked about it here, dude. I think BioWare is going to be owned by EA after Anthem.
They already are, aren't they?
Well, I mean, like
BioWare?
completely
shut down. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, like, it'll be interesting to see, though.
My guess is like there's no good outcome after Anthem. Either they become the Anthem and Dragon Age studio and they never work on another project other than those two, or Anthem is a bomb and it kills them.
Yeah.
Those are the only two options.
Well,
like Dragon Age 4 is going to happen, but like beyond that, maybe they put out Dragon Age 4 and it's just Anthem forever after that.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, based on what I'm hearing, it could go either way. Like it's 50-50 at this stage. And like, it's never a good sign when most of the companies in an industry are just one bomb away from failure.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like all these studios are say Nintendo, where if they have an entire console that bombs like the Wii U, they're sitting on such huge cash reserves that it doesn't really matter. Most studios aren't like that. They have a bomb and it kills them. Yeah,
they just get bought or they go away or the rights revert or I mean it's, I don't know, the labor part of the game industry is something that like I wish I knew more of so I could be like a more informed consumer. But sometimes it just seems like it's kept vague on purpose so that the companies who make all the money get to keep making all the money in a way, like when you find out like all these like side studios that do huge projects like that more or less finish out the game or like this whole studio did this one part of the game. They did the multiplayer, or they did this, or they did that. Like, it's hard to tell, what I'm good with and what I'm not good with, because who knows what the studios were going for. I don't know. It's not as easy for me to figure it out.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to, like, it's even hard to sort of attribute credit to various studios when like 10 different studios have their hands on a huge game because of contract work.
Right.
And that's actually another issue I sort of want to bring up, the issue of credit. One thing that sort of really that struck me about the Rockstar investigation, it came out that people who left the project midway didn't get their name in the credits, which is bad from the perspective of your CV, because then you don't get to put that game on your CV.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like cruel almost. Like, they put in the work, and sure, they had to leave the project for whatever reason, but they still put in the work.
I would probably, I mean, if I was that kind of developer, I would still put that on my resume. Hey, this is the aspect
really
of
petty.
It's petty, but it's something that personally I think it could be remediated pretty easily.
Yeah, but then like they call it your former employer. They'll be like, yeah, they worked for us, and like anyway, it's a.
I mean,
I'm not sure exactly how it works for CVs, but like, naming the credits,
a big
does matter.
Portion of a professional job interview is demonstrating what you know.
Yeah.
I mean, a resume gets you into an interview, but when you're in the interview when the interview situation, what is more critical than how much your resume hypes you up to be. So if you can demonstrate that, hey, I worked on Rockstar's, physics engine, and I can make bullet casings bounce around in a fashion or whatever it takes, and and here's the code that demonstrates that I can do that shit. That is a lot more critical than just getting your name on a credit scroll at the end of a video game.
I mean,
okay, that's good to know that at least there is that recourse, and it's not like fatal if they get cut.
Yeah, I mean, again,
I think
from
it
an
is
IT standpoint, I've never, I haven't written a video game since Basic, but I am an IT geek.
Nobody likes Basic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess at the end of the day, I kind of get a little frustrated with sort of like the mealy mouthed, these guys didn't put in the work to see the project to the end, so we're going to cut their credits.
Yeah, I agree with. Yeah, I mean, the complaint that they didn't do the work, therefore they don't deserve the credit. That's bullshit. I 100% with that.
The other sort of mealy mouth thing that's come out of this is, like, it's not that much overtime. They're like, the average is 45 hours a week. It's a little bit of overtime. Most people weren't hitting that, but then like salaried employees aren't like logging their hours generally. So how are you really saying that? So I feel like I almost get the sense that Rockstar sort of wants to change, but is so far removed from their employees' actual, like, the management is so far removed from their employees' actual health and well-being, and they don't know how, and they don't get the scope of the problem.
Yeah, I think they got it now, though. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of out there. Yeah, I would imagine.
I don't mean to sound pessimistic, but again, as a person who's worked in a bunch of salaried positions where a lot of overtime is just sort of expected, I doubt they give that big a shit.
Yeah. And like the other thing about overtime, like it does take a toll. Like, having been through crunch before, like you start to neglect things like eating right or like doing your laundry properly. Just general life stuff gets
sleeping is a big
sleep goes out the window. You don't clean your apartment. Like, this shit matters. It takes a toll on you, and it sucks that like you can deal with it for a couple of weeks at a time, but forcing people to live through it for 4, 5, 6 months is just not something I think should be tolerated within the industry. And hopefully Rockstar gets the message and fixes their shit.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to hear, I don't know if we have any game devs that listen, but I would like to hear what they think about it all, because to me, it's just like, as an outsider, it's, I don't know. It feels weird.
They can always reach out to us at our website where there's a feedback form. That's right. The Avocado Gamescast has a website, avocadogamescast.wordpress.com, where you can find all our episodes and download them and read link dumps that fact check each episode and link to stuff that
tell us how long we are
talk about. Yeah, tell us how stupid we were.
Everything we said for the last hour and a half is bullshit.
Bull fucking shit, guys.
Bull fucking shit.
I mean, it's a Halloween episode. We can just make whatever shit we want, right?
Yeah. Deal with it.
I feel like I didn't nail that transition into the conclusion. I feel like it was too casual.
I think you did fine.
I've got to dig up the Halloween music we used last time. It makes it work better.
Yeah. What are you doing, man?
The monsters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're gonna get content ID'd.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
No, we're not. Don't worry. We're gonna get sued by Randy Pitchford before we get content ID'd. Please don't sue us, Randy Pitchford. We secretly love you.
I think we say that every other episode.
We love you, Randy Pitchford.
Yeah.
Please hire us.
You're not a
Pitchford.
liar. Yeah.
We need the work.
So anyway, do you guys have anything else you want to mention before we close this podcast to a close?
I think we got it.
All right.
For those of us who pissed money away for the Best Buy like games budgety who's-its, that is coming to a very swift end. The reason I have Red Dead Redemption right now is because it was 20% off with their little games Best Buy rewards type thingy. They are killing that dead at the end of the year, so buy your games now. So
there you go.
All right. Everybody head to Best Buy and just buy their entire stock.
Buy your games.
If you got the thing. If you got the thing. If you don't have the thing, screw Best Buy. If you do have the thing, buy your games from Best Buy.
Yeah, and then like flip them for a profit.
And flip them for a profit.
Yeah.
And sell them in the black market.
Like, is there a video game black market?
Yeah. GameStop.
That is, I don't think we can top that burn. So I'm going to call this episode to a close. And I mentioned we did have a website. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And make sure you check out the community that spawned this podcast at the-avocado.org. Don't literally type out the word hyphen. Why would you even do that or think that's the thing that you should do? All right. I think that just about covers it. Spooky Halloween noises for the outro. Hey, guys.
Blah, blah, blah.